Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
What if I told you you're not lazy? You've just been lied to. What if the real trap isn't failure, but waiting for motivation that never comes? And what if the secret to unstoppable success isn't motivation at all, but something far more powerful? You've been told to wait until you feel ready, but every second you hesitate feeds regret, weakness, and stagnation. The truth is simple. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Discipline isn't just a skill, it's a weapon. Have you ever wondered how unstoppable people force themselves to move forward without feeling ready, without hesitation? You're about to learn the brutal, liberating formula. This isn't hype, it's survival. Move, or be crushed. In a few moments, I'll show you how to force yourself to take action. No motivation, no hesitation, just execution. Because motivation, as you've been sold, is the greatest illusion. It's the drug society feeds you to keep you stuck, waiting, hoping, fantasizing, while never creating real change. You've been conditioned to believe that successful people leap out of bed every morning fueled by endless inspiration. But that's a dangerous myth designed to keep you weak. The harsh truth is this: waiting for motivation is the fastest way to guarantee you'll never move. Look around. How many people do you know who keep saying, "I'll start when I feel ready," or "I just need to get motivated"? Where are they now? Still waiting, still stuck, still fantasizing while life passes them by. Here's the reality. Motivation was never a requirement for action. It's just a fleeting feeling, unreliable as the weather. If you anchor your life to it, you'll remain a prisoner of inconsistency forever. The real difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't motivation, it's discipline. It's discipline, the ability to act no matter how you feel. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired, stressed, bored, or unmotivated. It simply says, do it anyway. The disciplined person wakes up and takes action, not because they feel motivated, but because they know action isn't optional. It's mandatory. Society won't tell you this, but here's the truth. Action creates motivation, never the other way around. Think about it. How many times have you forced yourself to hit the gym, work on a project, or start a task you dreaded, only to realize that within minutes your energy shifted, your focus sharpened, and you felt more driven? That's not an accident. That's the formula. Movement comes first, motivation follows. You don't wait to feel ready. You act, and the feeling catches up. Successful people, the ones dominating in business, fitness, and life, don't rely on fleeting bursts of inspiration. They've trained themselves to act regardless. Waiting to feel like it is a child's game. They've burned that illusion to the ground and replaced it with relentless execution. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it today?" They ask, "What needs to be done?" And then they do it. Period. If you want to reclaim your power, you must destroy the illusion that motivation is required. It's not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct of action. Discipline is what drags you out of bed when your mind begs for comfort. Discipline builds the body, the business, the life. It doesn't negotiate, it commands. And when you stop waiting and start moving, something incredible happens. The fog lifts, momentum builds, and you begin to step into the person you always wanted to be. Not because you felt ready, but because you acted despite the doubt. That is where real power lies. The true enemy? Comfort. It's the most seductive adversary you'll ever face. It doesn't scream or warn, it whispers. Comfort lulls you with ease, softness, and the false promise of safety. Before you know it, its claws sink deep into your mind. It convinces you that slowing down is fine, that skipping today's work won't matter, that resting a little longer is harmless. It tells you tomorrow will be a better day to start. But while you sit waiting, easing into softness, it quietly kills your dreams. What makes comfort so dangerous is that it disguises itself as self-care, as rest you've earned, as being kind to yourself. Yet there's a big difference between true recovery and lazy indulgence. Comfort doesn't care about that line. It feeds on your desire for relief, and every time you choose it over growth, your brain rewires itself. Neurons strengthen the command. Avoid effort, stay safe, stay still. Your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. Your capacity for challenge weakens. What starts as a skipped workout, a postponed goal, or a delayed decision slowly becomes identity. You become the one who waits, procrastinates, and avoids discomfort. The brain adapts to whatever you repeat. If you constantly choose comfort, it reshapes itself until avoiding effort becomes the default. Suddenly, even the smallest tasks feel overwhelming. The mountain looks taller, the climb steeper. What others handle with ease begins to feel impossible, not because it truly is, but because you've trained your mind to retreat at the first sign of resistance. Comfort becomes the cage you built yourself, and eventually you can't even imagine life beyond its bars. Seeking comfort is not harmless. It is seeking weakness. It's a silent declaration every time you choose softness over strength, ease over growth, or safety over greatness. And with each of those choices, you step further away from the person you could become. You trade potential for the illusion of peace, but it's hollow, temporary relief with a crushing long-term cost. That cost is regret, because comfort now always turns into pain later. The people who dominate life understand this truth better than anyone. Comfort is the enemy. They don't chase it, they don't cling to it, they learn to despise it. Instead of asking, how can I make this easier? They ask, how can I make myself stronger? While others run from difficulty, they run toward it. Why? Because they know growth lives in discomfort, strength is forged in resistance, and the life they dream of sits on the other side of struggle. You cannot build greatness on a foundation of comfort. Comfort breeds softness, softness breeds weakness, and weakness guarantees mediocrity. If you want real change, you must rewire your mind to crave discomfort, lean into the hard, and reject the easy path. Because comfort isn't just the killer of dreams, it's the executioner of potential. And the pain it leaves behind is the quiet kind, the suffering that doesn't scream or leave scars, but lingers deep inside. It's the weight pressing on your chest at night when you know you could be more, yet still refuse to move. This is the pain of inaction, the slow, suffocating agony of watching your potential rot while you do nothing. It's a weight that grows heavier with every missed opportunity, every delayed decision, every excuse you whisper to justify standing still. Most people believe action is hard. They see the effort, the sacrifice, the discomfort, and convince themselves that moving forward is too painful. But what they fail to realize, until it's too late, is that inaction hurts far more. It's a different kind of pain, quieter and subtle, yet infinitely more destructive. The pain of action is temporary, fatigue, soreness, a moment of struggle. The pain of inaction lingers forever. It festers into regret, and regret haunts long after the moment has passed. Nothing cuts deeper than looking back over months, years, even decades, and realizing the only thing standing between you and the life you wanted was your refusal to act. Not luck, not opportunity, not outside forces. It was you, choosing comfort, choosing hesitation, choosing fear. And with time, the gap between who you are and who you could have been widens. You feel it like a phantom limb, the constant ache of wasted potential and untaken chances. Regret doesn't roar at first. It begins as a whisper, a sting when you see someone else doing what you always dreamed of, a quiet discomfort when you watch someone living the life you told yourself was impossible. But that whisper grows louder each day you fail to act. It soon appears as frustration, anxiety, depression, or restlessness. Things no distraction, no entertainment, no temporary pleasure can silence. Because deep down, your mind knows when you're betraying yourself. And it punishes you with the slow drip of regret. But here lies the truth. This pain has two faces. It can break you, or it can forge you. The very discomfort you feel from doing nothing can become the spark that forces change. If you let it, the pain of inaction can transform into your greatest catalyst. Once you truly grasp the cost of standing still, once you face the reality that time is slipping away and no one is coming to rescue you, you have two choices: drown in that truth or rise above it. You turn the pain into a weapon. Let it remind you that the price of waiting is always higher than the price of doing. When you finally choose to move, to act, to fight, you'll see nothing is more painful than a life wasted in hesitation. That's the discipline-first mentality. Discipline is the dividing line between dreamers and achievers. It's the brutal truth most people refuse to accept, because discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't rely on feel-good quotes or the perfect mood. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for permission. It demands only one thing: action. Relentless, consistent, non-negotiable action. This is why discipline will always beat motivation. Motivation is a visitor, coming and going at will. But discipline takes up permanent residence in the mind of every winner. The world has sold you the lie that you need to feel inspired to move, that the grind should feel exciting or easy. But real winners don't wait to feel anything. They've killed that idea completely because they know feelings are irrelevant. If you only act when you feel like it, you lose. Discipline means showing up when you're tired, when you're bored, when every part of your mind begs for rest or distraction. And still, you do it anyway. True discipline never bends to emotional weather. They don't wake up each morning checking whether they feel like executing. Their inner voice isn't one of negotiation, but command. It doesn't matter how I feel, the work gets done. That's the discipline-first mentality. Ruthless, unforgiving, yet the only formula that works. Because life doesn't reward intention, it rewards execution. Many believe discipline is restriction, a rigid and miserable existence. But the truth is the opposite. The undisciplined suffer most, trapped in cycles of procrastination, regret, and wasted potential. The disciplined are free from chaos, free from the mental torture of knowing they could do more, but settling for less. True freedom is built on self-respect. When you live with discipline, you trust yourself. You know that no matter what, you'll do what must be done. That's the formula of the successful. Feelings are irrelevant. Action is mandatory. This is the law, the line in the sand. You stop giving emotions a seat at the table. You stop waiting to feel inspired. You move, you execute, you act, because the work demands it, because your goals demand it, because the best version of you is buried beneath excuses and waiting to be unleashed. Discipline isn't about working when it's easy. It's about showing up especially when it's hard. That's when you separate yourself from the masses. Most people live at the mercy of their emotions. The disciplined take control, and in that control lies every victory you've ever wanted. But there's another enemy, overthinking. It's the most sophisticated form of self-sabotage. It disguises itself as caution, preparation, even intelligence. It tricks you into believing you're being productive while you're really drowning in mental quicksand. Your mind whispers, "Let me figure this out a little more. I need the perfect time. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work?" And while you're tangled in thought, life keeps moving without you. Opportunities slip away, momentum dies, and you become a prisoner of your own mind. That's the brutal truth few are willing to face. Overthinking isn't problem solving. It's procrastination disguised as logic. At its core, it's fear with better PR. Fear pretends to be responsible, even strategic, but its only job is to keep you frozen. It convinces you that more thinking equals better results, when in reality, it produces none. Instead, it feeds you endless questions without answers. Overthinking creates imaginary problems, phantom disasters, and obstacles that may never exist. The more you think, the heavier it feels. The task swells in your mind. The starting line drifts further away, and soon you've talked yourself out of the very thing that could have changed your life. Momentum dies in hesitation. The longer you sit trapped in thought, the harder it becomes to move. Action has a window, a critical moment right after the idea strikes when you must move before the mind catches up with doubt, excuses, and reasons to stay still. The mind's instinct is always to choose comfort and safety. The moment you face something challenging, uncertain, or risky, the mind starts building arguments against it. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I need to learn more. Maybe tomorrow will be better. It sounds rational, but it's a lie. A beautifully packaged lie that has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. Winners understand this mental game. They live by a simple rule. Act before your brain talks you out of it. When the thought comes, when the idea sparks, they move immediately. No overthinking, no negotiation, no paralysis. They know lingering too long kills the fire before it becomes action. If you want freedom, momentum, results, you must develop a bias toward action. Catch yourself when the mind spins stories and silence it with movement. Move first, think later. Let reality give you feedback, not the imaginary disasters in your head. Most of what you fear never happens, and the obstacles dissolve the moment you step forward. Overthinking is the enemy of execution, and execution is the only path to transformation. If you want real change, there is one skill to master: the ability to act without hesitation. A bias toward action is not just a habit, it's an identity. It's the shift from being trapped in your head to becoming someone who executes. Because the world doesn't reward dreamers, it rewards doers. The difference between the one who wins and the one who watches is simple: movement. Hesitation is a habit, reinforced every time you pause, every time you wait for certainty, every time you tell yourself now isn't the right time. And here's the truth: your brain is always watching. If you repeat hesitation, you train your mind to stop when it should go. With each delay, the gap between thinking and doing only grows wider. Hesitation, repeated often enough, becomes the new default, a prison of stagnation. But here's the truth few ever realize. Just as hesitation can be trained, so can action. You can rewire your mind to link discomfort with movement, not avoidance. Resistance should be the signal to go, not to freeze. The key is killing those micro moments of delay. The instant your mind whispers maybe later, you crush it with immediate action. Not tomorrow, not an hour from now. Now, this is how you override the programming that has kept you stuck. Building a bias toward action begins with rejecting the belief that you must feel ready. Burn the lie that clarity comes first. The reality is simple. Clarity is the reward for action, never the prerequisite. You figure it out by doing, not by thinking. Every time you move before you feel like it, you carve a new pathway in your brain. Slowly, hesitation stops being the default. Action takes its place. Progress takes its place. With practice, the mind rewires faster until momentum itself becomes automatic. Soon, you stop asking, can I? Should I? And instead, your reflex becomes go. That's who you become. Someone who doesn't negotiate with himself. Someone who doesn't wait for the perfect mood. Someone who refuses to let fear or doubt dictate the pace. Kill hesitation, kill delay. Let discomfort become the green light, not the stop sign. Let doubt fuel the action, not smother it. Because the truth is brutally simple. Winners are not the ones who think the most, plan the most, or endlessly prepare. They are the ones who step into the unknown, who move straight into resistance, who train their minds to fire without delay. They build a bias toward action, and because of that, the world bends to them. Discomfort becomes their default. It is the dividing line between the life you have and the life you want. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort, avoiding it at all costs, treating it like an enemy. But those who rise, those who dominate, know a truth the masses never grasp. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the compass, the signal. It points directly to where growth lives. The places that scare you, the tasks that make you hesitate, the challenges that twist your stomach. Those are the gates to your evolution. The faster you train yourself to stop avoiding them and instead lean into them, the faster you separate yourself from everyone who never will. Training yourself to crave discomfort is an act of rebellion against the weakness the world wants you to accept. You do it by rewiring your mind to see resistance not as a barrier, but as a signal. When something feels hard, when fear creeps in, when every part of you wants to pull back, that is the green light. That is the moment to lean in, not retreat. You stop asking yourself whether it's convenient, easy, or whether you feel like it. Those questions are erased. The only one that matters is, does this make me uncomfortable? If the answer is yes, you move toward it, with intention, with intensity, with purpose. Over time, this becomes your default system. Discomfort stops feeling like a threat. It begins to feel familiar, almost like home. You start to crave it because each time you lean into it, you emerge stronger, sharper, more dangerous. The very tasks others avoid become the ones that forge you. Where they retreat, you advance. Where they look for relief, you look for the next battle. The weak avoid discomfort and pay with mediocrity. The strong chase it and are rewarded with mastery. You must decide who you're going to be. Discomfort is not punishment. It's the path, the proving ground. It is the gate you must walk through daily if you ever want to reach the version of yourself that waits on the other side of fear. Make discomfort your default. Go there every time, no exceptions. And above all, destroy the myth of the perfect moment. That idea is a lie, a beautifully packaged illusion meant to keep you stuck where you are. It's the mind's cleverest excuse, disguised as patience and wrapped in the language of logic. You tell yourself, I'll start when things calm down, when I have more time, when I feel ready, when everything aligns. But the brutal truth is this: the right time never comes. It never has, and it never will. Life doesn't hand out perfect conditions. Life doesn't pause the chaos, the uncertainty, or the resistance just because you finally decide you're ready. Those who wait for the perfect moment rarely start, and if they do, it's already too late. Every second you spend waiting for some magical alignment is a second you hand over to weakness. The need for perfection is nothing but fear in disguise. Fear of failure, judgment, and discomfort. You tell yourself that waiting is smart, that it's responsible, but in reality, it's just procrastination wearing a mask. And while you wait, momentum slips away. The window begins to close, and the gap between who you are and who you could be widens. Winners understand a truth most people never accept. The best time to start is always now. Not because conditions are perfect, but because they never will be. Progress belongs to those who take messy, imperfect, relentless action. The first steps will be awkward. The process will be chaotic. You'll stumble, fail, and make mistakes, but none of that matters. Because the goal isn't perfection, it's movement. Those who succeed aren't the ones who did it flawlessly. They're the ones who showed up when it was hard, when it was uncertain, when it was uncomfortable, and did it anyway. Waiting for the right time is the surest way to let time pass you by. A year from now, 5 years, even 10, you'll realize the window you were waiting for never opened, because it never existed. Winners don't ask for the perfect moment. They create momentum in the middle of the mess. They move forward when tired, when scared, when uncertain, even when they feel like quitting. Every step, no matter how sloppy, compounds into strength. You must choose. Do you want to look polished, or do you want progress? You can't have both. The perfect moment isn't coming. No one is going to appear and tell you it's time. There will never be less fear, less risk, or less uncertainty. There is only now, and now is enough. Take the leap, take the swing, take the step. Messy, flawed, relentless action will always beat perfect inaction. Always. But how do you start when you don't feel like it? There will be days when resistance feels suffocating, when every fiber of your body begs for comfort, when your mind invents 1,000 rational excuses to delay. Starting can feel heavier than the task itself. But here's the truth high performers know. Waiting to feel like it is a losing strategy. The mind will almost never hand you the perfect mental state. If you want to win, you must stop relying on feelings and start relying on your ability to bypass resistance completely. The real battle isn't the task itself. It all begins with the start, the first step, the first 5 minutes. That's where resistance lives. Once momentum kicks in, the task becomes easier. But breaking through that initial wall is where most people lose. They stare at the mountain, overwhelmed, convincing themselves they lack the energy, focus, or willpower, so they wait. Yet the longer they wait, the heavier it feels. The antidote isn't some magical burst of motivation. It's strategy. The brain is a stubborn machine, one that doesn't respond to negotiation but to momentum. The key is lowering the entry barrier so far that the mind has no chance to fight back. You don't commit to 10 miles. You commit to putting on your shoes. You don't commit to writing a full chapter. You commit to opening the laptop and typing a single sentence. This is the concept of micro-starts, the hidden weapon of the disciplined. Resistance isn't against the whole task, it's against starting. But once you're in motion, the mind adapts. The fog lifts. What felt impossible 5 minutes ago suddenly feels manageable, even easy. Micro-starts trick the brain by reframing the task from overwhelming to insignificant. You give yourself permission to do the smallest version, not as an escape, but as a Trojan horse for action. The moment you start, the mind shifts gears. You realize the thing you avoided wasn't nearly as painful as the endless cycle of avoidance. The dread fades, momentum builds, and suddenly you've gone far beyond the minimum into real progress. This is how the disciplined escape the trap of not feeling like it. They don't wait for a change in mood. They change their mood by moving. They create psychological momentum by focusing only on the first tiny step, knowing once they break that wall, the rest flows naturally. The resistance that felt impossible begins to evaporate. Then the second motion comes. If you can train yourself to focus on the first inch instead of the entire mile, you'll become unstoppable. Once starting feels easy, follow-through becomes inevitable. The hardest part of the battle was never the work itself. It was convincing yourself to begin. And now you know how to win that war every time. Become the person who acts. There's a powerful shift when you stop seeing action as something you occasionally do and start seeing it as part of who you are. This is where most people go wrong. They treat action like a task, a temporary event they have to force themselves into. They wake up, stare at the mountain of everything they've avoided, and try to push themselves to climb it. But because they still see action as something foreign, something outside themselves, resistance never fades. The struggle feels endless. They fight against their own identity, forcing behavior that doesn't align with who they believe they are. That's why they remain stuck. Real, sustained action isn't a task or a checklist, it's an identity. The greatest transformation happens when you stop saying, "I need to start doing things," and begin declaring, "I am the kind of person who acts." This isn't just wordplay. It's a rewiring of your brain, your self-image, and your belief system. As long as you believe you're someone who procrastinates, hesitates, or lacks consistency, your actions will always be chained to that belief. You'll fight yourself at every step. But when you adopt the identity of someone who acts, the fight ends. It simply becomes what you do, because it's who you are. The person who acts doesn't waste energy negotiating with their mind. They don't debate whether they feel like it today. Their self-image answers the question before it's ever asked. This is what I do. This is who I am. And because identity drives behavior, the moment you believe this about yourself, your actions fall into place. The gym isn't a debate. The tough conversation isn't delayed. The project doesn't wait. Why? Because the question isn't whether you should act. It's already answered. The only thing left is execution. The shift from "I wanted" to "I am" is where the game truly changes. "I want to be disciplined" is the language of someone merely hoping for change. It's fragile and leaves room for failure. But "I am disciplined" becomes a command. It's a filter for every decision. If it aligns, the answer is yes. If it doesn't, it's no. This is the psychological armor of high performers, the line that separates doers from dreamers. Identity isn't given, it's built. You forge it decision by decision, repetition by repetition. Every time you choose action over comfort, every time you silence the voice that says, "Not now," you cast a vote for the person you want to become. And with enough votes, your brain accepts it as truth. Suddenly it's no longer effort, it's autopilot. Hesitation fades, resistance weakens, because you've become the person who acts, not someone pretending. Crafting this relentless, unstoppable self is a process of elimination and reinforcement. You eliminate the stories that no longer serve you. The belief that you always quit, that you're inconsistent, that you're easily distracted. Those aren't facts, they're patterns, and patterns can be broken. You reinforce the new identity by behaving as if it's already true. You don't wait to feel like the person who acts. You act like that person until your brain, your world, and your results have no choice but to catch up. At first, it feels brutal. The old version of you will fight back, whispering every excuse it knows, trying to pull you into what's familiar, easy, and safe. But each time you override it, even in the smallest ways, you weaken it. Every act of movement, no matter how small, feeds the identity of someone who executes, someone who wins. This is the real secret few talk about. Success isn't about tricks, hacks, or even discipline alone. It's about becoming the kind of person for whom discipline is natural, not summoned but embodied. While others are stuck thinking, "I should," the one who acts is already moving. They don't wait for clarity because clarity is born in motion. They don't wait for confidence because confidence is built through execution. The life you want, the goals you keep imagining, the version of yourself that haunts you, it isn't waiting for some perfect day. It's waiting on the other side of this decision. To act, not tomorrow, not next week, but now. You step into it before you feel ready. You wear it like a second skin until there's no separation between what you do and who you are. When action becomes identity, you become unstoppable. Nothing can hold you back. So burn the ships. Remove the option to quit. Every person faces a choice. Climb back into the safety of excuses and backup plans, or destroy the exits and go all in. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they leave themselves a way out, a mental back door that whispers, "If it gets too hard, I can always escape. I can always walk away." As long as that door exists, as long as quitting is an option, the mind will find a way to rationalize using it. That's why the idea of burning the ships carries so much power. It isn't just a phrase, it's a psychological shift, a line in the sand that says, I'm done negotiating. I'm done entertaining failure. This isn't something I'll try. This is something I will do. It comes from a primal truth. When there's no way back, when retreat is off the table, the only direction left is forward, and forward becomes not just a choice, but the only option. Yet most people approach their goals half in, half out. They say they want to change, to level up, to build something extraordinary, but they leave escape routes everywhere. You hear it in phrases like, "I'll give it a shot," or "If it doesn't work, I can always go back," or "I'll try for a few weeks and see how it feels." This language is weakness disguised as reason. It's a lack of commitment wearing the mask of logic, and it guarantees failure before the first step is even taken. Because when pressure rises, when discomfort hits, when things inevitably go off plan, the mind will sprint toward the exits you left open. The ones who win remove those exits completely. They burn the ships and make quitting impossible, not because they never feel doubt or fear, but because they've stripped away the luxury of escape. When failure is no longer an option, distractions lose their grip. You stop negotiating with procrastination. You stop feeding energy into anything that isn't tied to forward movement. Suddenly, your only mission is to figure it out, no matter how messy, how painful, or how long it takes. The shift from "I'll try" to "I must" is where transformation begins. When goals stop being hobbies and start becoming survival, everything changes. The energy sharpens. The urgency is real. You no longer wait for the perfect moment or the feeling of readiness. You move because movement is the only path left. You execute because execution is survival. The mind, once crippled by hesitation and doubt, hardens into a weapon of focus. And when the option to quit dies, creativity is born. Resourcefulness awakens. Solutions appear where before there were only problems. When the brain knows there's no way back, it stops searching for the easy path and starts building the right one. How differently would you chase your goals if quitting wasn't even an option? How much more focus, fire, and grit would you summon if success was the only way forward? Most people never find out because they always leave themselves a way out. A plan B, a safety net, a cushion for failure. But those who rise know the safety net is the enemy. It looks like protection, but in reality, it breeds weakness. It gives the subconscious permission to give less than everything. Burning the ships isn't just a phrase, it's a declaration to the world and to yourself that there's no retreat, no surrender. This isn't optional. It must happen. And once you send that message, everything changes. You attack the day differently. Obstacles stop being excuses and become puzzles to solve. Failure isn't the end, it's feedback. Setbacks don't give you permission to quit. They fuel you to push harder. You don't leave the gym early. You don't delay the hard tasks. Tomorrow doesn't exist. There is only this moment, this rep, this fight. This is what happens when there's no way back. You become dangerous, focused, relentless, unstoppable. The truth is, most people are only half living, half trying, and life gives them half the results. But the moment you decide success is not a wish but a demand, you move like a different creature. You become the person who never quits, who never negotiates with weakness, who will suffer, sacrifice, and bleed if that's what it takes. Because forward is the only direction left. So burn the ships until the fight in front of you is all that remains. And then you fight, you rise, you win. Because when retreat isn't an option, victory becomes inevitable. The motion doesn't matter. Execution is everything. Yet the world has sold you a seductive lie. Wait until you feel ready. Wait until you feel motivated. Wait until the stars align. That lie keeps people trapped in mediocrity, starting and stopping, caught in bursts of energy followed by long stretches of paralysis. The truth is both brutal and liberating. Your feelings don't matter. Not in discipline, not in execution, not in building anything meaningful. If you wait to feel like working, you've already lost. Those who rise, who dominate their craft, their body, their life, have learned to sever the cord between emotion and action. They move regardless of how they feel. They execute as if emotions are irrelevant, because they are. But you've been conditioned to believe otherwise. Tired, then rest. Unmotivated, then wait. Uninspired, then pause until inspiration arrives. That is the software of weakness, the silent program that chains people to the floor of their own potential. The harsh truth is this: the part of you craving comfort, ease, and relief is not your ally. It's the voice of weakness disguised as self-care. It whispers that skipping, delaying, or easing up is fine because you don't feel like it today. But that voice has no interest in your growth, no interest in your power. Its only mission is to shield you from discomfort, even if that means suffocating every dream you've ever had. The cure is execution. Pure, relentless, mechanical execution. You stop asking how you feel about the task. You stop checking if your mood matches the work. You simply decide the work gets done. The gym doesn't care if you're tired. The business doesn't care if you're uninspired. And opportunities won't wait for your emotions to align. The world rewards execution, not intention, not feelings, only results. This is the psychological shift that separates the disciplined from the distracted. You learn to detach. You operate like a machine with purpose, not because you lack emotion, but because you refuse to let emotions dictate your life. You can feel tired, bored, or overwhelmed. None of it matters. The work still gets done. You show up. You execute. You move forward every single time. No negotiation, no compromise. Operating like a machine doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've risen above the weakness of letting fleeting emotions control your path. The disciplined understand this. Emotions are visitors. They come and go, but action is a choice. You may not control every feeling, but you control whether you act. And the more you practice moving regardless of mood, the stronger you become. Soon the gap between intention and action disappears. You stop needing to hype yourself up, stop searching for motivation. You move because movement is who you are. The people who master fitness, business, art, or life don't succeed because they are always inspired. They succeed because they always execute. They don't skip when they feel off. They don't pause because the mood isn't right. They've trained their nervous system to follow one command. It's time to work. No questions, no inner debate, no waiting for the perfect emotional state. This is true freedom. The freedom from being enslaved by your own feelings. Ask yourself, how much time have you lost waiting to feel like it? How many days, weeks, even years slipped away because the mood wasn't there? How many opportunities passed while you waited for an internal green light that never appeared? The cruel reality is that waiting only builds inertia. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. The more you hesitate, the heavier the task feels. But the moment you detach, when you decide feelings don't matter and execution is everything, the fog lifts. You realize the task was never the weight. It was your attachment to comfort that held you down. Train yourself to move like a machine with purpose. Purpose is what matters. The mission is what matters, not the noise in your head, not the emotion in your chest. Rise above it. Transcend it. You do the work whether it feels good, bad, or completely neutral. And in doing so, you become untouchable. Storms may come, but you stay steady. Doubt creeps in, yet you keep moving. Fatigue whispers, but discipline drowns it out. When you kill the idea that feelings matter more than actions, you unlock a power most people never glimpse. The secret to an extraordinary life isn't waiting for the right mood. It's mastering yourself until mood is irrelevant. There is only the mission, the work, the execution. Everything else is noise. And the way to rewire your brain is through repetition. The path to becoming unstoppable isn't a hidden hack or magical trick. It's repetition, ruthless, disciplined, relentless repetition. It's not glamorous, not flashy, but it's the brutal truth people spend their lives running from. Repetition is hard. It's boring. It's uncomfortable. Yet it's also the most powerful force for transforming who you are and what you can become. You are what you repeatedly do. Your brain is a machine built to automate whatever you feed it. Every action, every decision, every habit is a signal. The more consistently you send that signal, the stronger the neural pathway grows. And the brain doesn't care if those signals serve you or destroy you. It only follows what you give it. When you repeatedly choose procrastination, your brain wires for procrastination. When you repeatedly choose discipline, your brain wires for discipline. The process is brutally simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Most people spend their lives trapped in a feedback loop of bad habits. Not because they're lazy or broken, but because they don't realize every repeated behavior is a vote for the person they're becoming. They let inconsistency define them, dabbling, starting, stopping, trying only when it feels good, and retreating when it gets hard. In doing so, they unknowingly reinforce weakness day after day. But here's the truth that will set you free. Discipline is not genetic, it's not a gift. It's a skill, a muscle, a pattern. And like any muscle, it grows through repetition. You don't wake up suddenly disciplined. You become disciplined by showing up daily, regardless of how you feel. You train your brain to accept there's no option but forward. With every repetition, resistance weakens. The task that once felt heavy starts to feel normal. What once required massive effort becomes baseline. You evolve, you rise. This is the compound effect in its purest form. Small daily actions don't stay small. They stack, they build momentum, and that momentum becomes unstoppable. Most people underestimate this power because at first, nothing seems to change. The first few days feel meaningless. The first week barely moves the needle. That's where the weak drop off. They tell themselves it's not working, that if change isn't immediate, it must not be worth it. And so they quit. What they miss is that momentum is a snowball. It starts small, almost invisible. But with each repetition, it grows bigger, heavier, faster, until it becomes an unstoppable force. The real magic happens when repetition shifts from effort to identity. At first, waking up early feels brutal, the gym feels like war, and sitting down to work feels like a grind. Then something changes. The brain rewires. It begins to recognize, this is who we are now, this is what we do. And the moment that shift takes place, the behavior no longer feels foreign. It no longer feels like a fight. It becomes automatic. It feels effortless, not because the work is easier, but because you have evolved. You're no longer someone trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. No longer someone hoping to be consistent. You are consistent. It isn't forced anymore. It's simply who you are. That's where true power begins. Once behavior becomes identity, the friction disappears. The debates with yourself fade away. You don't skip the workout because it's not even a question. You don't procrastinate because showing up is just what you do. Weakness has no place in the system you've built. And it all starts with repetition, not some grand, heroic effort once in a while, but small, steady steps. Consistent, disciplined acts executed relentlessly. That's the key. Show up and do the work every day, whether you feel like it or not, whether anyone is watching or not, whether it seems significant or not. Because the truth is, every small act matters. Every rep counts. Each moment of discipline is another brick in the fortress of mental toughness you're building. It may not look like much on day 1 or even on day 5, but check back in 6 months, a year, you won't even recognize yourself. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary. Not through luck, not through talent, but through repetition and the relentless commitment to casting votes for the person they are becoming, brick by brick, day after day, until the mind, body, and soul have no choice but to adapt. This is who you are now. This is what you do, and nothing can shake it. That's why you must destroy procrastination rituals. Procrastination isn't just a bad habit. It's a ritual, a predictable pattern your brain runs every time you face discomfort, difficulty, or uncertainty. It disguises itself as harmless distraction. But the harsh reality is procrastination isn't random. It's engineered. It starts with a cue. The moment you feel pressure or resistance, the mind immediately looks for an escape. Something easy, something pleasurable, something that gives the illusion of productivity without requiring the discomfort of real work. You open the task, but suddenly the dishes look urgent. You sit down to write, but convince yourself the inbox must be cleared first. These aren't accidents. They are programmed avoidance behaviors your brain has rewarded so many times they've become second nature. The first step to destroying procrastination is ruthless self-awareness. You must become a sniper, observing your patterns, tracking your triggers, and calling out the micro behaviors that steal your time and energy. Procrastination isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind low-level busyness, wearing the mask of preparation, planning, or organizing. But beneath it all, it's avoidance. It's the refusal to do what truly moves the needle. The uncomfortable truth is this: as long as these rituals remain intact, procrastination owns you. You will always default back the moment discomfort appears. And it's not about motivation or caring more. It's mechanical. Neural pathways built over years don't vanish just because you want them to. They dissolve only when you replace them. You overwrite them with something stronger, something deliberate, turning resistance into a trigger for action instead of avoidance. That's where high-leverage action rituals come in. You don't defeat procrastination by wrestling with it in the moment. You destroy it by replacing the automatic delay loop with an automatic execution loop. It starts the instant resistance shows up. You attack first, open the task, the document, the workout, the challenge, before your brain can talk you out of it. You rewire yourself by making that first move non-negotiable. The second hesitation appears, you anchor to a ritual that forces momentum. Stand up, open the file, lace the shoes, hit the timer, move. No debate, no overthinking, just immediate physical action tied to the task. This becomes your new ritual, your new baseline. Procrastination cannot survive in an environment where action happens before the brain invents an excuse. At the same time, you must dismantle the structures that allow procrastination to thrive. Your environment can't be filled with distractions and still expect discipline to win. Remove the devices that steal your focus. Clear your workspace of anything unrelated to the mission in front of you. Discipline isn't about superhuman willpower. It's about creating an environment where the path of least resistance leads directly to execution. Excuses lose their power in this system. The same mind that once created endless reasons to delay now has no space for negotiation when the ritual is wired into movement. It becomes mechanical. The trigger fires, and the behavior follows. You don't wait for the task to feel easy. You don't check in with your emotions. You simply follow the ritual. Just as you once practiced avoidance, you now practice action. And here's the most powerful part. Every time you choose action over delay, your brain rewires itself. The neural pathways for procrastination weaken while the ones for discipline grow stronger. What once felt like a battle becomes automatic. What used to drain your energy now fuels it. Because action creates clarity, action builds momentum, and action generates power. This is how you become someone who no longer battles procrastination. Because procrastination is no longer part of your identity. The old rituals die, the loops of distraction dissolve, and what takes their place is a machine. A mind that meets resistance with movement. A nervous system trained to turn discomfort into fuel, not a reason to retreat. While the world hesitates, you act. While others stay trapped in delay, you are already executing. This is the edge. This is how you reclaim your time, your focus, your life. You don't destroy procrastination with hope or willpower alone, but with ruthless repetition, a system that makes action your default, your identity, your way of being. Resistance itself isn't a flaw. It's not some defect unique to you. Resistance is a law of nature, as real and constant as gravity. It shows up every time you chase something meaningful, every time you push higher, step into discomfort, or try to rise beyond where you are now. And resistance will always appear. It's the invisible force pulling you back towards safety, comfort, and the mediocre version of yourself it already knows. This isn't personal, it's universal. Resistance doesn't just attack the weak or the lazy. It targets anyone who dares to become more. The mistake most people make is seeing resistance as a sign that something is wrong. They assume if the task feels heavy, if fear is loud, or if doubt creeps in, maybe they're not ready. Maybe they don't have what it takes. But the truth is the exact opposite. Resistance doesn't appear when you're doing something meaningless. It shows up because what you're doing matters. It's not a signal to stop, it's a signal to move. It's the clearest indicator that you are exactly where you need to be. Every day, without exception, is a battle between who you are and who you could become. There is no finish line to this war. Resistance never disappears. There will never be a day when fear subsides completely, when the weight lifts and progress feels effortless. Waiting for that moment is the lie resistance feeds you, because its greatest weapon isn't force, it's delay. It whispers, not now, later, tomorrow. It doesn't need you to quit outright, only to pause long enough for your fire to fade. The disciplined, the relentless, those who rise, they don't escape resistance. They expect it. They wake up prepared for the fight. They understand resistance is the price of greatness, the toll you pay to cross from the safe, familiar version of yourself to the stronger, more powerful one. Every time you act instead of pause, every time you push instead of retreat, you win a battle. And the war is not won in a single day. It's won through thousands of small victories. Each one is a choice not to surrender. To beat resistance for good, you must change how you see it. Stop treating it like an enemy that sneaks up on you. See it as an opponent that sharpens you. Its presence never means stop, it always means go. It doesn't mean retreat, it means advance. Resistance isn't a wall, it's a door, one that only opens to those willing to push. The disciplined no longer see resistance as something to avoid. They've trained themselves to use it as a trigger. When it shows up, they know they're on the right path. Instead of pulling back, they lean in. That's how the shift happens. You stop asking, why does it feel this way? Why is this so hard? And start saying, of course it feels this way. This is the process. You stop wasting energy fighting resistance and save it for the real battle, doing the work. The moment you stop negotiating with resistance, you strip it of power. It feeds on hesitation, growing stronger when you pause to question if you're ready. But when your response is immediate movement, no debate, no hesitation, it weakens. It fades into background noise. Resistance only wins if you believe its story, that hard means impossible, discomfort means danger, or fear means stop. Accept that lie, and you lose. But when you see resistance as proof of progress, as confirmation that you're pushing higher, it loses its grip. You stop flinching when it arrives. You stop letting it dictate the pace of your life. This is the war, and while it never ends, you grow stronger, faster, sharper. What once paralyzed you becomes the fuel that drives you. The voice that whispered, "Not today," becomes the cue that today is exactly the day. The weight that crushed you becomes the resistance that builds your strength. You no longer dread the battle. You welcome it, because resistance is not the enemy. Stagnation is. Weakness is. Living beneath your potential is. And the version of you that wins this war? That version is already inside you. It's the one that shows up when things get hard. The part of you that pushes forward when every instinct screams to pull back is the one that wins. It understands resistance is not to be feared, but mastered. And mastery never comes from waiting for resistance to vanish. It comes from facing it again and again until it breaks before you do. This is how you refuse to surrender. This is how you win. Every day, every battle, every moment. One of the most powerful tools you can use is the pressure of deadlines. Urgency has the unmatched ability to strip away hesitation, silence overthinking, and ignite action. When time is limited, when the clock is ticking, when the window is closing, something primal awakens. Procrastination fades, clarity sharpens, the body moves, and the mind locks in. Doubt, perfectionism, and excuses all fall silent. That is the true power of a deadline. It isn't just a tool, it's a weapon. Most people remain stuck because their goals lack urgency, consequence, or pressure. They wake up with vague intentions. I should start that project. I should focus on my health. I should finally launch that business. But should carries no weight. Soon has no deadline. With no consequence for delay, the mind drifts back into comfort, avoidance, and endless loops of planning and waiting. Days slip by. Suddenly years are gone. Not because they were incapable, but because there was no urgency to force them into action. Urgency is the antidote. It's the force that flips the brain into execution mode. Humans are hardwired to respond to deadlines. That's why the most productive people often accomplish more in the final 24 hours before something is due than in the previous 3 weeks. The pressure of time collapsing forces sharp focus. It wipes out distractions. The irrelevant fades, and only what matters stands in the spotlight. There's no room for overthinking, no space for doubt. Just act now or lose. But here's the trap most people fall into. They only honor deadlines when someone else imposes them. A boss, a client, a school assignment. Under external pressure, they deliver. Yet when it comes to their own goals, their own dreams, their own growth, they remove the deadline entirely. They leave it open-ended. One day, someday, eventually. And that's why nothing happens. The brain knows there's no consequence for delay. So delay becomes the default. The disciplined have learned the truth. If life doesn't hand you urgency, you must manufacture it. They set artificial deadlines. They create pressure where none exists. A vague goal like I want to write a book becomes the first draft is finished in 30 days, non-negotiable. I should get in shape turns into by the end of this month. I've trained at least 20 times. They don't wait for the stakes to rise, they raise them. This is how urgency becomes a weapon. You stop being the person who waits for pressure, and you become the one who creates it. No longer leaving the door open for procrastination to walk in. You slam the door shut with deadlines so aggressive that the brain has no choice but to comply. The moment the mind believes time is running out, everything else fades. Resistance weakens, excuses lose power, and action becomes inevitable. But deadlines alone aren't enough. The brain is clever. If the deadline only exists in your head, it knows how to negotiate. No one will know if I miss this. I can extend it. It's just me anyway. That's where accountability comes in. And make no mistake, accountability isn't optional. It's a weapon. When you make the deadline public, when you commit to someone else, when your reputation, your word, your pride are on the line, the stakes rise. The pressure multiplies. Failure is no longer private. Backing down is no longer invisible. The mind now knows there is no safe retreat. This is how high performers push themselves to levels most people never reach. They create deadlines that compress time. They strip away the luxury of waiting. And they tie those deadlines to accountability so strong that failure isn't just disappointing, it's humiliating. They understand the mind is lazy by design, always searching for the path of least resistance. But when the clock is ticking, when the commitment is made, when the walls close in, the mind stops searching for comfort. It locks in and executes. Think back to every time you've truly delivered, finishing something last minute, rising to the occasion under pressure, or surprising yourself with what you pulled off. It wasn't because you felt wildly motivated. It was because the clock was ticking, because there was no more time to wait. Because the alternative to execution was failure. You had to move, you had to perform, you had to win. That is the power of urgency. And the lesson is simple. You don't have to wait for life to create that pressure. You can create it yourself. You must. Without urgency, discipline decays. Without pressure, focus fades. Without deadlines, dreams remain dreams. But the moment you turn eventually into by Friday at 5 p.m., the moment you tie it to your pride, your reputation, or someone holding you accountable, you become dangerous. You become the person who moves when others hesitate, who executes while others make excuses, who rises while others stay stuck. The clock is the greatest motivator ever invented. Use it. Strap it to every goal. Attach it to every mission. Stop giving yourself forever. Start giving yourself now. Because urgency isn't stress, it's power, it's clarity. Action is greater than confidence. One of the greatest lies ever told is that confidence is something you wait for, that it's a prerequisite to action, that you need to feel ready, feel sure, feel certain before you finally move. This belief is a trap, a beautifully packaged excuse that has stolen more potential than failure ever has. The truth, the raw truth, is that confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. Confidence is built in the doing. It is forged in the fire of movement, in the uncomfortable, messy, terrifying space between starting and succeeding. The ones who don't move because they're confident, they become confident because they moved. Most people sit on the sidelines of their own lives, paralyzed, waiting for some magical shift to happen inside them. They say, "When I feel more sure, when I know enough, when I'm fully prepared, then I'll start." But that moment never comes, because confidence doesn't fall from the sky like a gift. It's a reward, a byproduct of proving to yourself, again and again, that you can do hard things, that you can take action even when your hands are shaking, when doubt is screaming, when fear feels suffocating. The ones who are moving, growing, and winning didn't begin with confidence. They began scared. They began unsure. They doubted themselves every single step of the way. The only difference is that they moved anyway. They stepped straight into the storm of uncertainty while everyone else waited on the sidelines for the winds to calm. They didn't need perfect clarity to take the first step. They accepted the truth that clarity doesn't come before action, it's created by it. The mind loves to convince you that waiting is responsible, that holding back until you feel ready is wise. But in reality, it's just protecting you from discomfort. It's the same old trick, only dressed in new clothes. Waiting to feel confident is nothing more than procrastination disguised as preparation. It's your mind's way of shielding you from the possibility of failure, embarrassment, or pain. But here's the truth it doesn't want you to see. The longer you wait, the heavier fear becomes. The more you delay, the louder doubt grows. Confidence does not grow in silence. It does not grow in waiting. Confidence only grows in motion. Every act of courage, every display of strength you've ever seen in athletes, leaders, creators, or entrepreneurs all began in the same place. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. The difference wasn't that they were fearless. The difference was that they moved anyway. They knew the only way out of fear is through it. Waiting for fear to vanish is a fool's game. It never goes away. It simply loses its power over those who refuse to obey it. This is the formula. You move scared, you move uncertain, you move with knees shaking and voice trembling. You do the thing badly, imperfectly, unsure, and yet you do it. Through that motion, through repeating the act of facing discomfort, something shifts. You begin to realize the fear never owned you. The walls you thought would collapse were never real. The monster in your head was nothing but paper-thin illusion. And that's when confidence begins to grow. Not because you waited for it, but because you earned it. Confidence is proof of execution, the scar tissue of someone who acted afraid and survived to tell the story. Each time you move, you gather evidence that you are capable. And slowly, the narrative changes from, "I'm not sure if I can do this," to, "I've done hard things before. I can do this too." It's not magic. It's not motivation. It's biology. The brain rewires itself through experience, not through thought. Yet the tragic truth is that most people never see this shift because they keep waiting. They let fear script their lives, whispering excuses like, "I'm not ready," or "I'm not confident enough yet." And then they wonder why nothing changes. But change was never going to arrive on its own. It was waiting for them to move first. The most confident people you've ever seen didn't begin that way. They became that way by acting. Confidence isn't a requirement. It's a consequence. It's the trophy given to those willing to step forward without it. Those willing to stumble, to fail, to get back up and try again. So you move scared, you move uncertain. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, stop waiting for doubt to fade, because it won't. Not until you act. You move because motion is the only force strong enough to silence the noise. You move because action is the only path to growth. The version of you waiting for confidence will wait forever. But the version that acts without it becomes unstoppable. That's the way forward. Not through waiting or overthinking, but through relentless, imperfect action. The kind that says, "I'll do it scared. I'll do it unsure. I'll do it anyway." And when you do, the confidence you've been waiting for finally shows up. Not as a prerequisite, but as the reward for courage. Focus is a superpower. In a world drowning in noise, distraction, and constant stimulation, the rarest and most valuable asset isn't talent or intelligence, it's focus. Pure, razor-sharp focus. The ultimate superpower. It's what separates those who truly move the needle from those endlessly busy but stuck in place. You can have all the motivation, the best strategies, the brightest ideas, and the highest ambition. But if your focus is fractured, none of it matters. Scattered focus kills action. It drains your energy, your attention, your willpower, until all that's left is exhaustion and frustration with nothing to show for it. The harsh truth is you cannot build anything meaningful in a fragmented state. Greatness demands singular focus, ruthless, obsessive concentration on one thing at a time. The world tries to convince you that multitasking is a skill, that juggling 10 things at once is a badge of honor. But that's a lie. The brain was never built for divided attention. Every time you switch tasks, every time your mind bounces between objectives, you pay a price, a cognitive tax. It drains your energy, kills momentum, and weakens execution. The people who rise, who dominate, who seem superhuman in productivity, aren't superhuman at all. They've simply mastered focus. They know doing one thing with full intensity beats doing 10 things poorly every time. When they work, they work. No background noise, no checking, no bouncing between tasks. They cut out the distractions, lock in, and attack one target with everything they've got until it's done. Then they move to the next. That's ruthless execution. It's not glamorous, not designed for dopamine hits. It's discipline in its purest form. Choosing boredom over chaos, silence over noise, depth over distraction. And when you step into this mode, the world shrinks. There is only the task, only the next action, only the objective right in front of you. Everything else disappears. And when you operate this way, you enter a flow state where the impossible starts to feel effortless. But here's the reality. The modern world has trained you to be distracted. Every app, every platform, every device is engineered to fracture your attention. It's a war for your focus, and unless you fight back, unless you take control, you lose. You become another casualty of the distraction economy. Someone who talks about big dreams, but spends life bouncing between meaningless tasks, wondering why nothing ever changes. To reclaim focus, you must be ruthless. You must treat it like a sacred resource. Because that's exactly what it is. You don't guard it casually. You protect it like your life depends on it, because your future does. Eliminate anything that doesn't serve the mission. Shut the doors, silence the noise, and make it clear to yourself and to the world that your attention is no longer for sale. When you operate this way, everything shifts. Productivity skyrockets. Tasks that once dragged on get done in a fraction of the time. The overwhelm fades because you're no longer juggling 5 things at once. The scattered feeling disappears because your mind is no longer split between endless channels of noise. What replaces it is clarity, momentum, and power. Focus is discipline in motion. It's the physical manifestation of commitment. It says, this matters. This is the mission, and everything else can wait. Once you master this, you become dangerous. While the world drowns in distraction, you're building. While others chase dopamine hits, you're chasing mastery. But it won't be easy. The pull of distraction is relentless. Your own mind will fight back. It's been conditioned for instant gratification, novelty, the constant hit of something new. But this is the battle. Every time you resist, every time you choose depth over distraction, you win. You rewire your brain for focus, discipline, and excellence. Understand this. The greatest threat to your goals isn't failure. It isn't rejection. It isn't even fear. The greatest threat is distraction. The danger of living a life so fractured that you never give your full power to anything. But the moment you choose to eliminate, to ignore, and to attack one target at a time, everything shifts. Focus becomes your weapon, your superpower, the edge that makes you unstoppable. Discipline the mind, and the body will follow, because the war is always won in the mind long before it ever reaches the body. The truth is brutal but simple. The body is nothing more than a servant to the mind. It does exactly what the mind allows. If the mind is weak, the body crumbles under pressure, seeks comfort, and quits when things get hard. But when the mind is disciplined, ruthless, and unrelenting, the body has no choice but to obey. No debate, no negotiation. The mind commands, and the body executes. End of discussion. The problem is, most people live in constant negotiation with themselves. They hear the voice saying, we should get up early, train, work, push. Yet the moment discomfort appears, they open the floor to debate. Do I feel like it today? Am I too tired? Maybe I should rest, maybe tomorrow. And the moment that conversation begins, the battle is already lost. The body will always default to comfort if the mind even hints it's an option. Mastery begins when negotiation ends. When you train your mind to issue commands with finality. When the mind says move, the body doesn't argue. It doesn't hesitate. It executes, whether it's rising before the sun, grinding through a workout when your muscles beg to quit, or tackling hard tasks your emotions resist. None of it is up for debate. The mind commands, the body listens. Period. Building this kind of military-grade discipline isn't about hype or motivation. It's about conditioning. It's about rewriting the software that runs your life. Each time you act without negotiation, each time you push when the weaker voice says stop, you carve a new neural pathway. You train yourself to see thoughts not as suggestions, but as orders. Over time, the gap between command and execution shrinks until there is no gap at all. You move because movement has become non-negotiable. That is where real power lives. When the mind leads with discipline, the body becomes a weapon. Fatigue fades. Excuses become background noise. Weakness loses its grip. You start operating like a machine on a mission. There's no asking how you feel, no checking for permission. You've trained yourself to know that discomfort is irrelevant to decision-making. The only question is whether the mission demands it. And if the answer is yes, the work gets done. No debate, no delay. This is what separates the average from the elite, the disciplined from the distracted. The moment you decide the mind commands and the body obeys, you enter a different reality. This is the reality where execution isn't optional, where results aren't random, and where success becomes inevitable. Rewards are earned, never handed out. Yet comfort has become a disease for most. Somewhere along the way, people began treating ease as the default, as if the world owed them relaxation, as if simply existing entitled them to reward. But the truth is far less forgiving. Comfort was never meant to be the baseline. It was never designed to come before effort. Comfort is not the starting point. It is the trophy, the spoils of war after the battle is fought. It's the prize for discipline upheld, for work executed, for resistance crushed. The moment you confuse the sequence, when comfort comes before the grind, you set yourself on the path to weakness. The sharpest, strongest minds in the world understand this better than most. For them, comfort is sacred. It's not stolen, not taken without cause. It's earned. They deny themselves softness until the mission is complete, until the standard is upheld, until the discipline is honored. Only then does rest become acceptable. Only then does relaxation feel clean, powerful, and truly restorative. When you've earned it, comfort doesn't weaken you. It sharpens you. It refuels you for the next fight. But when comfort becomes the starting point, it doesn't refresh you, it rots you. It feeds laziness disguised as self-care, becoming an invisible poison. Pleasant in the moment, devastating in the long run. Because when you indulge before earning it, you teach your mind something dangerous. That rewards can exist without effort. That pleasure can exist without pain. That softness can exist without sacrifice. And that lesson leads to decay, to mediocrity, to the slow erosion of everything sharp, disciplined, and powerful within you. You must re-engineer your mind. Build a system where reward only comes after effort, where comfort isn't expected but unlocked. This is the disciplined first life. You wake each day knowing nothing pleasurable enters until the work is done, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. The requirement is always the same. Work first, grind first, sweat first, earn it. And when you live this way, something shifts. You start to associate pleasure with victory, not escape. Comfort no longer means avoiding the hard things, but conquering them. This is where true confidence is built. Not from affirmations or hollow motivation, but from stacking days that prove you don't take the easy way out, that you refuse softness without sacrifice. And the truth is, rewards feel different when they're earned. Rest tastes better when it's soaked in discipline. Relaxation feels richer when it's the aftermath of battle, not a substitute for effort. A simple break becomes a celebration instead of a betrayal. You no longer sit with guilt, no longer feel the weight of knowing you avoided what needed to be done. Because the work came first, because you kept the order sacred, this is how the most disciplined minds dominate long term. They aren't superhuman, they aren't built differently. They've simply mastered the art of delaying gratification. They've trained themselves to crave completion more than the temptation of relief. They reject the softness that tries to seduce them before the battle is won. And because of that, they grow stronger, tougher, more resilient. While others slip into a comfort first, consequence later life, the disciplined are stacking wins daily, ruthless, unapologetic. Comfort becomes a weapon when used correctly. It's fuel when it follows effort. It's restoration when it follows execution. But invert the formula. Take pleasure before pain, and it becomes a trap. You start weakening from the inside out. The mind softens, and the body follows. Your goals feel heavier, harder, further away. Not because they are, but because you drained yourself with comfort that was never earned. The decision must be made now. Draw the line. From this point on, nothing pleasurable comes before the hard thing is done. Until the workout is finished, the project completed, the discipline honored. You begin conditioning your nervous system to understand that comfort follows conquest, nothing else. And with enough repetition, it becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. You stop craving relief before the job is finished. You stop looking for escape. The grind becomes the baseline. The reward becomes the punctuation mark at the end of the sentence, not the beginning. This is the mindset that builds warriors, builders, leaders. It's how you develop a psychological edge most will never understand. You hold the line when others don't. You delay what they give into. You choose to be hard where they choose to be soft. And because of that, the gap between you and them widens with every day, every choice, every moment. You demand the work first and the reward later. With each step, you move further from average and closer to unstoppable. Rewards are earned, never given. There's a brutal law that governs everyone who's ever achieved something worth remembering. Comfort is not the starting point, it's the prize. Yet the modern mind has been seduced into believing the opposite. People wake up expecting ease, softness, and relief before they've fought, suffered, or earned it. That illusion is dangerous. The more you feed yourself unearned comfort, the weaker you become. The mind softens, the body follows, and soon the person you could have been is buried beneath indulgence without effort. The disciplined never live this way. For them, comfort is the trophy, the victory lap, the flag planted after the battle is won. It's not the fuel, not the baseline, not the escape. When you flip the order, demanding comfort before effort, you collapse the very structure of discipline. You trade your future for the fragile pleasure of now, and the mind is always listening. Every time you choose comfort before effort, you teach it something corrosive. You teach the mind that rewards are handed out simply for existing, not for execution. That dopamine is yours whether or not you've earned it. And once that belief takes root, it spreads like rust. The mind starts chasing shortcuts. The body begins resisting hardship. The work feels heavier, the resistance stronger, the climb steeper. Not because you lack ability, but because you've drained yourself of the fuel only earned rewards provide. Flip the script, though, and everything changes. You decide, no comfort, no softness, no reward, until the work is done. The workout gets finished, the hard conversation happens, the task gets executed. Only then does the mind open the gates to relief. And because it was earned, the rest feels different. The relaxation strikes deeper, sharper, more satisfying. It doesn't feel like escape, it feels like victory. That difference changes everything. This is how disciplined minds win the long game. They train themselves to crave the right thing. Not the escape, not the shortcut, not the quick pleasure, but the satisfaction that follows the grind. The confidence that comes only from knowing the work was done, the standard was met, and weakness was defeated again and again. People may call it extreme. They'll say you're too rigid, too hard on yourself. Let them. They don't understand. They don't see that this is freedom. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from the low-grade anxiety that follows those who indulge without paying the price. Freedom from the quiet voice that whispers, "You didn't earn this." Because when you earn it, truly earn it, there is no guilt. Only peace. Only pride. Only the clean satisfaction of a warrior who did what needed to be done. Comfort is a weapon when earned, but a trap when given too soon. When you begin each day asking, "What have I earned?" instead of "What do I feel like?" the entire fabric of your life shifts. Rest feels sharper, food tastes better, even the air feels different, because it's been paid for in discipline, in effort, in the currency of self-respect. This is how the mind turns to iron. And when the mind hardens, the body follows. You deny softness until the grind is complete. You delay gratification until the mission is finished. Only then do you take comfort, not as a thief stealing what isn't his, but as a victor claiming what's rightfully earned. The world won't understand this. Most people are programmed for comfort first. They've been told self-care means indulgence without effort, that rest is a right instead of a privilege. So they live in cycles of confusion, resting without exhaustion, rewarding themselves without achievement, wondering why satisfaction never lasts, why emptiness returns as soon as the pleasure fades. But you won't live like that. Not anymore. You choose the harder path, the right path. The path that says nothing pleasurable comes without pain first. Nothing is deserved until discipline is displayed. Softness only feels good when balanced against the sharpness of sacrifice. And every time you choose that path, you pull further away from mediocrity's gravity. You become harder, sharper, stronger, more capable than the version of yourself who once believed comfort could be the baseline. The truth most will never face is this. Comfort means nothing until it's earned. The bed feels softer when you've bled for it. The meal tastes richer when it follows suffering. Rest feels sacred when it's the prize, not the escape. Living by this makes you untouchable, because the world cannot tempt someone who knows comfort without conquest is poison. But comfort after battle is fuel, power, and the true reward of the unstoppable. This isn't theory or motivation. It's the blueprint for becoming the person who moves. Every day, every moment, without negotiation. No more waiting, no more overthinking, no more letting comfort and resistance rob you of your potential. Now you understand the truth. Action builds momentum, action creates confidence, and action is the cure for everything. From this point on, you don't depend on motivation or wait to feel ready. You move relentlessly because that is who you are now. Wishing you health, happiness, and strength. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.